I, Sunita Goal, exposed Team Modi boast to appeasement in Goa. Is speaking historical truth now a crime?
ये है गोवा में अभिव्यक्ति की आजादी और कानूनी कार्यवाही के हालिया विवाद पर आज का त्वरित सार। देखिए, पत्रकार सुनीता गोयल की रिपोर्ट के अनुसार पुलिस ने जिस तरह गौतम और माधव खट्टर को गिरफ्तार किया है ना, उसने हमारी न्याय प्रणाली और अभिव्यक्ति की आजादी पर बड़े और खतरनाक संवैधानिक सवाल खड़े कर दिए हैं। तो पहला बिंदु है कानूनी प्रक्रिया का उल्लंघन। अधिवक्ता विष्णु शंकर जैन बताते हैं कि लॉ स्टूडेंट माधव को बिना किसी नोटिस के सीधा देहरादून से उठाया गया, जो धारा 35(3) का खुला उल्लंघन है। और तो और उन्हें बिना उचित ट्रांजिट रिमांड के गोवा ले जाया गया। अब आप ही बताइए, जब कानून के रखवाले ही सुप्रीम कोर्ट के नियमों को ऐसे ताक पर रख देंगे तो एक आम नागरिक न्याय की उम्मीद किससे करें? ये नियम आखिर तोड़े क्यों गए? दूसरा बिंदु यही है, कानून बनाम भीड़ का दबाव। पुलिस खुद मानती है कि इस जल्दबाजी वाली गिरफ्तारी का मुख्य कारण ईसाई समुदाय का भारी दबाव और उनका सड़कों पर उतरना था। जरा सोचने वाली बात है, क्या अब देश का कानून संविधान से चलेगा या सड़कों पर उतरी भीड़ के दबाव से? अब भाई, ये भीड़ किस बात पर नाराज थी? अंत में बात करते हैं आर्टिकल 19 और दोहरे मापदंड की। दरअसल गौतम ने इतिहास में दर्ज गोवा इंक्विजिशन के अत्याचारों पर बस टिप्पणी की थी। रिपोर्ट में बड़ा विरोधाभास है। जहां एक तरफ उदयन स्टालिन सनातन मिटाने की बात कहकर सुरक्षित रहते हैं, वहीं ऐतिहासिक तथ्यों पर बोलने वाले को सीधा जेल भेज दिया जाता है। इतिहास की किताबों में जो लिखा है उसे जोर से पढ़ना अपराध कैसे हो गया? क्या सेक्युलरिज्म के पैमाने सिर्फ एक ही पक्ष की भावनाओं को बचाने के लिए बने हैं? अगर न्याय की तराजू सिर्फ एक विशेष समुदाय की भावनाएं देखकर झुकेगी तो ये न्याय नहीं बल्कि वैचारिक दमन है।
Built its entire identity on two pillars, nation first and Sabka Vishwas, the promise of establishing trust and inclusion for everyone. But that image of secure, steady governance clashes sharply with what happened on a quiet suburban street, with police lights tearing through the night to execute a sudden cross-state raid. The targets were Gautam Khattar and his younger brother Madhav. They were apprehended at their home in Dehradun, hundreds of miles away, by forces dispatched all the way from Goa. The arresting officers completely bypassed standard constitutional safeguards. There were no prior warnings issued to the family. There was no transit remand secured from a local magistrate before forcing them across state lines. Why is a state government, run by a party known for defending Sanatani heritage, abruptly hunting down its own nationalist youth? The Dehradun raid presents a clear contradiction. It suggests that while the national brand is one of strength and heritage, the local reality can look very different when political pressure is applied. To understand why the Goa police crossed the country, we have to look at the trigger. Gautam Khattar made public remarks discussing the documented history of St. Francis Xavier and the harsh realities of the Goa Inquisition. Under the Indian Constitution, specifically Article 19, discussing historical evidence and expressing an opinion on it is a protected right to free speech. Compare this to the highly publicized remarks made by political figures like Udayanidhi Stalin, who openly called for the complete eradication of Sanatana Dharma, likening it to a disease. Stalin faced no midnight raids. No interstate police forces showed up at his door. Yet the Khattar brothers, for dusting off recorded historical facts, were treated like fleeing criminals. The application of the law here points to a stark reality. Your right to speak in India currently seems to depend entirely on the political leverage of the community you might offend, rather than any guarantee written in the Constitution. The justification for this entire operation comes straight from the local administration on the ground in Goa. The authorities made a stunning admission. They stated on record that the swift arrests were driven by street protests and direct pressure from the Christian community. To satisfy that pressure, the police bypassed Section 353 of the Legal Code, an essential rule that strictly mandates issuing a prior notice of appearance before making this kind of arrest. The cost of skipping those steps fell directly on a young law student. Madhav Khattar was thrown into a 4-day police remand, based entirely on the allegation that he helped write the speech his brother delivered. When law enforcement deliberately ignores procedural rules to placate an angry crowd, the rule of law ceases to function. It is replaced by mobocracy. This blatant overreach in a BJP-governed state casts a heavy silence over the national political leadership, leaving many wondering why the center hasn't intervened. Under the administration of Chief Minister Pramod Sawant, a clear pattern has emerged where specific individuals are turned into sacrificial lambs. To secure local vote banks and project a tightly managed secular image, the state apparatus is actively punishing the exact nationalist voices that helped build its foundation. By allowing local pressure to dictate the terms of an arrest, the administration risks turning the uniform application of the law into something negotiable. A healthy society requires history to be driven by factual evidence and open discussion, rather than buried to avoid upsetting the temporary emotions of a crowd. A system that adjusts its procedures to fit the demands of a crowd moves away from the certainty of the Constitution. In the end, the strength of the law is measured by whether it holds firm, even when it is politically inconvenient.
We usually picture Goa as a vibrant coastal paradise, a place defined by culture and relaxation. But recently, the state's police force executed a legal maneuver that dragged this sunny backdrop into the center of a massive constitutional debate. Goa police traveled over 2,000 kilometers north, all the way to Dehradun, to arrest two brothers, Gautam Qatar and his younger brother Madhav. The authorities didn't cross the country to stop a violent crime ring. They made this arrest strictly over a piece of historical commentary Gautam made regarding the 16th century figure St. Francis Xavier. The official justification offered for this rapid deployment is startling. Police admitted they expedited the arrest because they yielded to pressure from members of the local Christian community protesting in the streets. This forces us to ask how our justice system is actually operating. Are arrests guided by the objective rules of the Constitution, or does the state bypass the law the moment a crowd demands retribution? To answer that, we have to set public outrage aside and examine the objective legal facts. According to advocate Vishnu Shankar Jain, examining the exact steps the police took reveals a severe breakdown of due process. The first failure occurred right at the moment of the arrest. Madhav Qatar, who was actually a law student himself, was detained without receiving any prior notice. That is a direct violation of Section 35(3) of the Legal Code. Then the police bypassed Supreme Court guidelines entirely. They whisked the brothers across multiple state lines and took them back to Goa without securing a proper transit remand from a local magistrate. These procedures are not optional paperwork. They exist to protect citizens from unchecked state power and prevent government actions from looking like covert abductions. By ignoring these mandatory steps to appease angry protesters, the authorities suspended the rule of law. The procedure was legally compromised before the debate over free speech even started. This engraving depicts the Goa Inquisition, showing individuals subjected to religious persecution during the 16th century, the exact period Gautam Qatar referenced. Can citing documented historical events be classified as a criminal offense in a modern democracy? To test if the system is fair, we can compare how the state responds when powerful politicians make controversial statements. Consider prominent leaders like Udayanidhi Stalin, who publicly called for the total eradication of Sanatan beliefs. He faced no immediate cross-country police raids in the middle of the night. The bedrock of our system is Article 19 of the Constitution. It guarantees freedom of speech and expression, and it is designed to act as the ultimate shield for all citizens equally. Yet we see two vastly different realities. A politician advocating for the erasure of an entire belief system remains secure, while a private citizen discussing recorded colonial history is thrown in a jail cell. This uneven application of Article 19 creates a dangerous precedent. It establishes a two-tiered legal system, where your right to speak depends entirely on the political weight of the community claiming to be offended. Looking at the failed legal procedures and the glaring double standards reveals exactly what happened in Goa. The state actively surrendered the rule of law to street-level intimidation. Arresting citizens to suppress conversations about the Inquisition does not erase the historical record. It simply suffocates modern intellectual liberty. True secularism requires a single, unwavering standard of justice. The law must remain completely immune to ideological pressure or the anger of a protesting crowd. If the state only protects the sentiments of certain groups and the law bends to the loudest mob, then freedom of speech is no longer a constitutional right. It is merely a temporary privilege, and the mob decides when it expires. Remember, choice is not longer just political. It is a matter of national survival.